So essentially, Shopmatic provides the entire ecosystem for anyone who wants to sell online, right from creating storefronts to payment gateways to shipping, and to also have the ability to sell across social channels as well as marketplaces. So from our perspective, we are clearly focused on small businesses and trying to democratize it for them to be able to take on some of the bigger players in a nice growing e-commerce place. We're primarily focused on emerging markets, and our primary way of working with our customers is to localize the solution, handhold them through their journey of their e-commerce business, and then ultimately the idea being that they need to be successful with us, and we support them in that endeavor as well. So essentially, we are three co-founders. All of us are from ex-PayPal. So while our primary role at that point in time was to drive the PayPal franchise across the Asia-Pacific markets, one of the biggest pain points and the problems that we figured out at that time was customers wanted the entire ecosystem around it, not just a payments platform to be able to sell through. And in effect, they were looking for more, a localized solution, which would mean whether you have shipping in the market, can you connect me to marketplaces, can you use the different social channels for us to sell through as well. And at that point in time, that's how the whole concept of Shopmatic came about, and we started to build that out. We were clearly focused on building our presence in the emerging markets because we realized that that is a solution, that's an opportunity that is, or customers that are not being served, and for us to be able to help them through their aspirations of becoming an online business, or any business for that matter. The easier option for people is to take their business online, and for us to be able to support them in that journey. So we launched in India first before we launched in Singapore and Hong Kong, and the rest of the Southeast Asia markets are now some places that we will be entering in the next couple of quarters. So essentially for us, we are very clearly, as I said, focused on the long tail of SMEs and individual entrepreneurs. And we find that there are at least close to about 30-40 million people within the region selling through Facebook or social channels without having a larger ecosystem around it, no payments, no shipping. And the intent was to be able to bring that solution for the seller. And I do a lot of research to figure out what are the pain points that they're facing and build a solution around it. So some of the couple of big pain points in the Southeast Asia markets are logistics and shipping, and how do you enable the last mile fulfillment based on geography, based on quality, based on delivery, zones, things of that sort. So then working with partners to be able to provide that solution to the end customer was some of the big things that we had to sort of get past before we actually took that jump into enabling businesses. Essentially, first we set up in India and then moved into Singapore and Hong Kong. The one thing that is very clear is each market is very different. One is, of course, there are two levels to the whole setup in India or any other market. One is, of course, you having a presence, a physical presence to be able to operate in that market from a legal and a corporate structural standpoint. That in itself has different nuances in each different market. And then the bigger challenge is the customer types are different. The savviness of customers, whether they understand e-commerce, whether they understand technology, are completely different. Singapore is obviously a lot ahead in terms of where people's psyche is in terms of we're doing either buying simply online, engaging with online services, or for that matter, even trying to build an e-commerce business of their own. In India, it's completely different. Firstly, access to data, the access to technology, the bandwidth issues, infrastructural issues in itself cause a lot of that thought to come through. So we had to go with a very mobile-first approach in a market like India, wherein we were clearly trying to work on leverage the smartphone penetration that was there in India. And we had to, conceptually we were very clear we will build a mobile-first approach and then take that into markets such as India. And it's quite similar if you take that approach into Indonesia or Thailand as well, where it would be a very mobile-first driven initiative for us. If you don't take that and you make people go onto the desktops, you're obviously limiting yourself and the market in itself. The purpose for which we set up the company is very clear. We wanted to make sure that a small seller becomes successful and we're able to impact and make our life meaningful in terms of being able to support them in terms of their livelihood. When we were in our earlier organizations at PayPal, we came across a lot of such sellers who've actually built their entire life around taking a business from a small initiative to becoming something really big, wherein they're able to support their entire family in that journey. For us, that is actually very key. So for me, some of the the stories that we hear from our customers, wherein there's a small store in the hills of India, wherein they're able to bring in the tribal women around that particular geography to come in and have a livelihood of their own, because they're creating cool, creative products, and you're using our platform to be able to sell it to other buyers across the country, or if cross-border as well. And that gives them a significant amount of money for them to be able to make their livelihood. So when I hear stories of that sort and saying, thank you, Shopmatic, for making this happen for us, there is no bigger motivation than that. And for us, that is, I mean, you do have tough days. In a startup environment, there will always be something that's going to come and gut you from the side. And you will always have issues, customer issues, people issues, and all of the other, different things that you might have to do. But if you keep your mind and your focus clearly on the purpose for which you set it out to be, you don't have to worry about motivation, because there's never been a single day in the last 3.5 years wherein I've got up from bed and said, oh God, do I need to go to office? It's never been that way. It says, I actually sometimes detest the weekends, because you're not with the team, you're not working, you're not doing your stuff. And it's a fun journey for us at the end of the day. So when the 3 co-founders, we set it up, we said, no matter what happens, we'll also enjoy the journey. While we're very clear about the purpose as to what we want to achieve, we want to make sure that we enjoy the journey in terms of our learning, how we develop as people. I mean, if we take a step back and look at each one of us when we started 3.5 years ago to where we are right now, we are very different people. A lot more evolved, a lot more happier, a lot more, you have a larger understanding of the world and what is actually real. Earlier, you would, have your importance was probably determined by how many meetings you had in your corporate life. But today, we actually determined by what impact you can actually make to the customer. And there is nothing more, fulfilling than that for us. And that's something which clearly motivates us. So in a nutshell, as long as your eye is on the purpose as to why you set it up, and if it's a meaningful one, you don't have to worry about motivation. I mean, there are quite a few in the world that would actually, you feel inspired by. But I look at it and look at the influence that somebody has in a good way is Google, in terms of how they actually make it easier. Everyone's life becomes, it's clearly so much better. But if you think back and think about what would you do if you didn't have Google in your world, how would you actually live your life? And that, to me, the importance that as that company brings to people is significant. Whether the monetization of it or not is secondary, but the fact that they're able to change a person's life and the behavior about it has had tremendous impact. And the fact that they're ubiquitous. Every single aspect of your life has a Google play in it.